episode of Macro Monday for the year. So today we're going to look at all things markets. We're going to get into the AI trade and some of the concerns around the debt, and it's kind of subsequently ended up with kind of Howard Marks and a few others talking quite in depth about that regime. We'll look at kind of price action over the last week and month and such, and just kind of see what's going on as we hit the end of the year. And I think there's quite a lot to discuss. So if we look over just the last 7 days, what you'd observe is that Bitcoin is up slightly because obviously it has bounced back from quite a significant drawdown, and we'll get back into that soon. From top to bottom, it was over 36%, so real significant move. Gold's been performing well, while bonds have obviously been selling off as long duration rates have been rising. So we've had another rate cut, potentially the last rate cut for some time now. We do have an upward kind of tick in inflationary pressures. So what that might be telling you, or what the market might be telling you, is that the bond market doesn't necessarily agree with that rate cut, or that, of course, like a lot of people have talked about, this could be the last rate cut for a while. And we also saw the RBA do nothing. So some really significant developments going on in kind of the cost of capital regime, which puts pressure on leverage, and that obviously is a hot topic because of how much debt the AI kind of build out is using, and of course some of the troubles in the housing market and home builders and stuff in the US. So really interesting times. And you'll also observe that ARK is down over the last week 2.4%, and the S&P down 0.68. So kind of the question mark would be, is that people going risk off? If you kind of look at this scale, you would definitely say that ARK is probably the most speculative of the 5 assets in this list, and should be kind of have the most volatility up there with Bitcoin. And actually ARK, if you look inside their holdings, which you can actually do through the Acuity platform by going to holdings, you can actually see what's in there, and you'll actually notice there's a lot of AI and crypto related companies in their holdings, so they're going to have a high correlation to Bitcoin and other speculative assets. So let's talk about the AI trade a bit. We have seen it now cool off over the last period. This is a 1 month chart showing you the performance of some of the key players in the industry, plus the SPY, which is the S&P 500. So that's the benchmark perhaps in this example, and that's up 2.34%. Google being the best performer over this time, and has quite you can see the chart. It looks like there is actually some notably less volatility there as well, and Broadcom and Broadcom and CoreWeave have really seen some volatility, as well as Oracle. So the market is really testing this AI trade and how much people are basically levering up. Oracle's down the most out of all of these names, and they are kind of top of the list in terms of market participants questioning and being suspicious of how much risk they're taking with this AI capex. So quite interesting times, really, and definitely the market is giving that trade a bit of a pressure point in this part of the market. So let's talk about the New Zealand, the USD to NZD. So USD to NZD, we've actually had the New Zealand dollar get stronger. I actually think that's quite a positive turn of events, because who wants to be having to pay lots of extra money because of the exchange rate? So I think that's great. I think it's a welcome sight, and I think it's consistent with the general market putting pressure on the US around overly stimulating, which I would say is kind of potentially what is unfolding with the price action across many assets. So if we look at the S&P 500 here, kind of first down week in a few weeks, and we previous had that volatility through October. So the market's kind of definitely talking about that AI trade, and same thing with Bitcoin, but obviously a longer time frame. Bitcoin's was consolidating and has really dropped off. In prior market cycles as well, you would often see Bitcoin leading when it comes to that kind of liquidity crunch or risk off kind of eras. So that's kind of definitely playing a role. And then I guess if we look at the AI trade, which the NZD 100 does quite a good job of that, given the composition of the 100 companies, weaker than the S&P 500 naturally. So earnings this week, there's a few. I like to look at these general themes, look at the big players in different industries. We're all asking ourselves a lot of questions around AI and how impactful that's going to be. So that's been relatively negative for certain software companies and other areas where there might be impacts, like for example consulting. So Essential will be an interesting one this week. They're reporting. KBH is is in the home builder industry, so that will be interesting. Nike coming into Christmas, that again quite something to observe. Then Micron is the AI name of the week. So of the general themes that are quite interesting right now, which is kind of what does the kind of debt kind of sector look like? So what companies are highly leveraged, and with the cost of capital going up again, what does that mean? And then the AI names are front and center in our minds, as well as what's the retail industry look like, which Nike plays a good role in. And actually I think FedEx are also reporting this week, so that's also one to watch when you look at what's going on from a consumer's perspective in the US as well. And that's basically it for this week. So the year's closing out. There are lots of questions being raised, and there are always questions being raised, and a lot of those happen to be quite focused on what's going on in AI, and that's obviously been the kind of story for the last couple of years as well. So 2026 is going to be an interesting one. Remember that the build out is not connected to price action, so you can have assets go up in price when build outs are still occurring and the industry is fundamentally growing. So people can be exuberant and you can be in a kind of speculative fervor before the kind of build out is finished, and market participants and asset prices could also be heavily depressed while that build out kind of finishes. So it's really something to take note of. But as always, we wish you a great week and a great holiday, and we hope you get a good break and get to spend time with family. So